So, how you been doing, man?
Man, I'm good. Life is life, but can't really complain. I think it's always one of those things, and it's come up some. It's like you get, I guess I use the analogy of like getting a review at work, right? You get like nine positives and then one criticism, and it's so easy to get focused
Yeah,
on that criticism and
right.
neglect like how much good there really is around you. So,
Yeah,
like any human or any person with this disease, whatever, I suffer with that. But man, life's good.
yeah, yeah. It's crazy because things go along so swimmingly, right? And if I sniffle, excuse me, it's the pollen, right? So
Yeah,
I get funny in the past. If I sniffled, I had to say, "Hey, it's just pollen,"
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah.
man, a couple Sundays ago, Will, I was just like having a great day, zooming around, man. Part of what I do now on a daily basis is I'm doing business development for my friend's commercial lawn care company. Uh,
Okay,
it's a great change of pace, dude. It is nothing like I've done before.
okay,
But when you're doing commercial accounts, they have apps, so you got to check in when you do the job. You check in
yeah,
with apps, and so I was at one of the accounts, and I was checking on the app, and I'm trying to maintain, master the app. Long story short, buddy, I backed into a container and dented my car. Not so bad, right? But
yeah,
to your point, it just threw me off.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
that was a call to my sponsor, right? Like, really, dude? You like so, but the small things, right? Um,
Yeah, and I mean, it's like, what are you gonna do about it? Like, we're here.
uh,
This happened, right? Like, I have this
yeah,
option from here. It's
right,
like, I can do these things and kind of alleviate the frustration. I can make those phone calls. I can try to move towards acceptance. I can do better next time. But,
yeah,
again, it's like, man, it's a dent. And in the scheme of life, like, how important is this really? You
yeah.
know?
I was thinking about before earlier. I was zipping around and I was thinking about, man, last time I saw you. So was the last time I saw you when I chaired the meeting and you showed up with Teresa? Was that?
I think, man,
Oh
it's been
gosh,
over
man.
2.5 years.
Oh,
I mean,
easy. Yeah.
easy. It's definitely been a minute. I
Right.
remember, yeah, probably that little meeting we were at would be what I
Yeah.
would think it was. That was,
Right. Right.
oh
So
man,
we did our first. So for me, we did our first inpatient together at
yeah,
Avenues, and
yeah,
gosh, man, it was such an experience. And thinking about just having a little like dent or something go on in your life, that's the last thing we were thinking about when we were in that place, man.
yeah. I know it's funny how you stick around a little while and your life gets bigger and like it's almost like you find problems sometimes or
Right.
something. Like
Right.
it's almost like I need that or I crave that chaos or something. And it's like it's always like when I get pulled out of like that center that I want to be in, right? Like when I
Right.
get pulled out of that, it's like I don't think the testament to being centered is like staying centered. I think it's about like how you get back when you get pulled out. Because
Right.
that's just kind of like the flow of life to me. Um,
Right.
like what actions do I take? Um, to put myself back there, like to get back to those behaviors that like align with me being in recovery.
Yeah.
Um, it's always that to me.
Interesting back then because I was trying to just deal with where I was, and just kind of the first week, as going into the second week, you're starting to kind of acceptance of what your situation is,
Hopefully.
and yeah, and I came, used to uh, go to bed, go to sleep at night, whatever, and I would simply tap my finger and say, "Be present, be present, be present." Right? It was just sort of a weird thing I picked up. Will I still do that
Hmm.
today when I find myself, to your words, getting sort of out of center?
Yeah.
I bring myself into the present, right? Uh, to me, that is calming. It's like a form of meditation, oddly enough. You
Yeah.
know?
I could see that. I had a phrase that came up, and I remember when it happened. It was one of those moments, and it was like that dramatic shift. Like when I felt this like change occur, right? And I think it was probably like that a solid moment of surrender for me. But like the phrase that
Mm,
stuck with me, and it's just simply I don't know.
yeah.
Because I started looking at everything. It's like a lot of times, man, I don't know if something's good or bad. I don't know,
Right.
like, you know, it kind of leaves me like open and willing to learn, I think is where it's at. And I stop placing expectations around it when I do that.
Yeah.
But like a lot of times if I get in one of those situations that, man, ideally I didn't put myself in. Sometimes I put myself in, right?
Right.
Um, and it's just like I kind of take that step back and be like, I don't know, and get in that moment, right?
Mm,
And try to get that objective view on it, and then just do the next right thing with it, which usually that allows it to work out in some way, shape, or form. I mean,
for
even if it's
sure.
not the best, like it's going to be a growing experience. You don't have to repeat it.
For sure. I so last when I saw you last when we were in, I remember we were talking about sort of what's next and what we're going to be doing when we got out of inpatient.
Yeah.
And unless I'm mistaken, you were going to go be a phlebotomist.
Yeah, I was going to be a phlebotomist.
Phlebotomist, excuse me. Thank you.
No, you're good. You're good. Yeah, that is not how it turned out. I did
Right.
go back to school and get certified in and everything, but man, I'm one of those cases when I got sober, not a lot of people wanted to hire me. Not a
Mm,
real good work history, and I got that certification, did well with it, and then another job opportunity popped up to work with avenues to work in treatment, and I went that path, and
right.
it's been a good experience. It's definitely had its ups and downs, but
Mm,
I'm very grateful for it.
yeah.
So
So what was it like going back there as not as a patient but as an employee? So was that
hmm,
just kind of an odd experience or
that is a very good question. You know, you definitely see it from a different side, and
right?
while look, do you help some people in this line of work? Hopefully you do, but like you also have to always like keep it right size and like the mindset of like I'm getting paid to help. Um,
Yeah.
so it's kind of that dangerous line with it, but I think you get a very good reminder of where you were at. There were definitely some
Mm,
very surreal moments. I remember when I made a year. I remember
mm,
sitting down in that seat, running like a morning meditation group with the clients and just being like, dude, I was walking in.
mm.
Like that was probably one of the most unique moments. Oh, dude, thinking back to that's kind of wild.
Isn't it
Yeah, that
though?
was a really interesting experience to have. A lot of gratitude from it, right? And the realization, like, man, I'm a few bad decisions from being right back if I'm not on top of
Yeah.
what I need to do.
Yeah.
So I think that was one of the big reminders of it. You know,
Do
but
you see anybody? Just sticking on that, right? So it's 1 year. You're 1 year in. You're working. You were each hit our year sober mark pretty close to the same time, actually.
yeah, yeah.
Do you see anybody that reminds you of yourself, or like, do you see yourself in other folks when they come in there?
Oh, absolutely, all the time. Those are generally the most frustrating people to work with when they make you look at yourself. It's always like
Right.
spot it, you got it, but it is a
That's crazy.
it is a cool thing to kind of have that opportunity to reflect,
Mm,
and then again, like if it's something you work through, it's cool in that aspect. Is like, oh, I'm familiar with this. I got some
mm.
ideas on this, and obviously, like they're gonna do what they're gonna do with it, just like any of us, right? This can't be
Yeah.
forced. You can, I don't know, lead a horse to water, but can't make him drink. But I can give you the solution. And hopefully, it works. So
Yeah.
yeah, all the time, man. That I think that's a common thing, especially in the younger ones. The first time I went to treatment, I was inpatient treatment. I was 20, turned 21 in treatment, and I just see this like past version of myself, this entitled, grandiose, ego-driven child, and
Mm,
just like incapable of standing on my own 2 feet. so reliant on the enabling of my parents and all this stuff to just even function in this world. And yeah, it definitely can bring some things up.
Right.
I don't know, one of those cliche terms like egomaniac with an inferiority complex, like
Yeah.
very much
Well
that.
said. Yeah.
Um,
I wear those stripes.
yeah, for
Um,
sure.
yeah. So that's interesting. You brought that up because I didn't know that. So maybe we shared this back when we were together in inpatient, but that wasn't your first inpatient when I met you, correct? Is if I'm gathering
No,
correct?
not by any means. I got sober this time. This where I'm at right now is 36 years old when I walked back in. But I started trying at around 19,
Mm,
half-heartedly. I had to bump my head. Um, that first inpatient at 20, I was able to get on board with some things, but there's other things. I wasn't willing to look at the behaviors. I wasn't
mm,
willing to do certain things with myself. And I hung around and it was pretty good for a year, but at some point I went back out, and even to this day I couldn't tell you why. There was no logical reason for it. It just kind of occurred. And I spent like another 15 years bouncing around trying to figure things out, trying to do it my way. Any test you could think of running, any experiment you could think of doing, I did. And then at some point it's just like my way doesn't work, man.
right.
These people over here, though, like they seem reasonably happy. They're functioning in life. They seem to have some people that care about them. They seem to care about some other people, and it's just like, when faced with that, it was hard. It was hard to deny. And I think the other
Yeah.
thing is like when I looked back, like when I came in this time, and it had gotten really bad before I came in. Now I'm very grateful I made it in, but like when I look back over that 25-year span, there's like
Mm,
1 year in that span where it was like, man, things weren't so bad then. And I didn't
mm,
really put the work in. Like
yeah.
I just kind of hung around it. I didn't really get in it. So the question that came up was like, man, what happens if I really do this? Like
Yeah. Right.
if this was what a half attempt looked like and how I felt, even though it led to failure, like it planted that seed, right? And I think I just had to, I don't know, man, bump my head enough times till I was willing or whatever it may be to kind of remove my prejudices and my views on certain things from the equation. Just be like, look, I'm in so much pain right now. Whatever you tell me to do, I'm in.
Right. Yeah. I think about that a lot, man. I think about and my cliche line to myself is if I put as much effort into
Hmm.
this as I put into my disastrous behavior just on one night, right, dude?
Yeah.
Uh, I mean, it's not even like you have to go full force, bro, right? It's, you
Yeah.
know, like one 3 day stretch of chaos compared to what the effort I'm doing right now is like a fraction of the effort to just although that sounds very simple, but as you well know, when you're tackling real life problems and not have a place to go hide.
Yeah. I think one of the things that I've really kind of realized is like the intention behind what I
Mm-hmm.
do. And I always like to talk kind of like about like surrender versus compliance.
Mm,
Like, and a man told me is like, compliance is doing this because I'm told to, because I'm kind of put in a place where like I got back problems, like family on my back or the law on my back, trying to keep the relationship, trying to keep the job, whatever it may be. Or can I sit there and say like, man, these substances had a loaded gun against my head. I'm gonna die if I don't go do these things.
yeah,
And when I get to that point, it's different. My approach is different. You know, and for me, that's like where it kind of had to take. I had to have those close encounters with death.
mm,
I had to end up in that space in my head that was I didn't want to be there anymore, man.
yeah.
But it's funny because like I talk about it in this negative sense, but it's like one of the things I'm the most
I know,
grateful for now. Like
I know.
this is the catalyst. Like
Right.
without this, where I'm at now doesn't exist.
It's
It's
so
not
crazy.
possible.
Yeah, man, it's so crazy because doing this whole podcasting and little videos I'm doing, right? Um, you're trying to find your lane, right? So you're trying to be authentic and reach out and resonate with the folks that like us, right?
Hmm.
And so uh, there's an odd mix between being happy and smiling and being serious, right?
Yeah.
Because what always struck me about this is going to a lot of 12-step meetings
Yeah.
and sitting there when I was a newbie. And you hear all these terrible backstories, right? You're like, dude, can you give
Yeah.
me one glimmer of freaking hope here?
Yeah.
Like, please. So, that's kind of what I'm so trying to get to. And that's why I love your story because man, it's a great story, right? You got a new house, if I understand correctly, and
Yeah.
yeah, man, and
But I don't know, man. Like the material's great, and I think as a byproduct of just like
for
living a
sure,
healthy life and doing these things, you get some of those things. But like if we're talking about what it really is, man, like in sobriety, I've had my life implode. I've hit
yeah,
those bottoms in recovery where unfortunately, and this is going to sound really morbid, but they talk about like three paths for us. It's right. It's like go get
hmm
loaded, go kill
hmm
yourself, or go find God. And like
really,
I've been in that spot, right? And going to get loaded didn't make any sense. Like I couldn't make that work in my brain, but like I wanted the suffering to stop. So it's like I ended up going to find God, and that was kind of where it aligned for me. Um, but like those things, like the ability to have support in my life to help me get through those moments, the men I associate with, the way that those people have showed up for me and carried me in moments where like I could barely move.
hmm.
And being able to at least have some purpose to that pain, I think that's the real gift because maybe I put it like this. I almost died when I was 14 and had to learn to walk again and all these things. And it's we do this thing like why me, why me, why me? Like why did I go through this? Um, and 20 years later, it finally makes sense. I have a man that I'm very close with that goes through something very similar, and now
Ah,
like I'm able
okay,
to show up, right?
right,
Um, it's like it's like I have the framework for this. So it's I think the thing is, and we talk about all the gifts of recovery, and look, the material and life I have, those things are fantastic, but like the
yeah,
value of them does not compare to the
no,
relationships or the
no,
purpose or the having some amount of serenity in my life, even when everything around me is chaos, and like having this trust and this understanding, like this is character development. Like this is
yeah,
where I get to grow. It might not be fun, but this is where
yeah,
I grow.
yeah,
I think that's it to me, man.
right, yeah. I was talking to my buddy the other day, and we were just talking about just different things with work and running small business, and
Hmm.
and that's a stressful thing, man.
For
Right?
sure.
So it's I heard some guy say it's terror and then euphoria, right? So the
Okay.
myth, right? And but I
Okay.
told him, I was like, man, it's the spirit inside your heart is always going to outweigh the size of your wallet.
Yeah.
Right? That spirit in your heart to saying, I can do better. I'm going to do better. Uh, um, and the things that come along with it look non-material, man, just having some relationships with my daughter again, right? There's no money you can ever
Absolutely.
put on that.
Yeah.
And you say that to somebody and they list like a normal person, whatever normal uh would be like, okay, whatever, but man, you know what I'm saying? But when that
Yeah. No, I
promise
get
is
it.
delivered, right? That's a promise.
For
Promises
sure.
made, promises kept.
Yeah.
So what are
Yeah.
those?
Sorry, go ahead. My bad.
No, man. So like in your day-to-day life, um, the just in regard to promises and your higher power, what is what does that look like for you? Just the things that are unfolding around you as you've moved through and maneuvered through your sobriety. Like, big things in your life that have unfolded and changed for you?
I mean, man, it's been a journey. If I look at like, you talked about the family thing, and that's one that really comes up. I hadn't spoke to my dad and stepmom in 10, 11, 12 years when I got
Wow.
sober this time. And look, the relationship didn't come back quick, but I think at about 18 months sober, I reached out to them to make some things right. And, it's funny because they live in a gated neighborhood. And for some reason, I passed the neighborhood. It was out my way. I drove past it that night, and the car turned in,
Like,
so
oh
I
no,
followed it. And I
no
picked up
way,
that phone,
buddy.
and I made that phone call, and I got told to quit being dumb and go handle this. Like, go knock on the door and handle it. And it wasn't a quick development, but yeah, man, that's been one of
Mm,
the really big ones. I got to my dad and I's birthdays are like 2 days apart, so celebrating that together for the first time in 12,
awesome,
13
buddy.
years at that point. And then for our birthdays, we went to go see the Rolling Stones together. That was to be there with him to see his favorite band, something we had
Mm,
always talked about doing. My stepmom there, and my significant other at the time, like just an experience that I'm extremely grateful for,
yeah,
in the realm of family. And I think that's it. Like, it's the relationships I have with
right.
others. I think if we talk about what's really important in my life and the gifts I had, because like, I spent so much time separated and isolated and having all these problems with people. And I'm not saying all my relationships are perfect, but like the quality of the ones in that inner circle,
Mm,
there's some really important things to me in there. I think the other thing when we talk about these promises or these things that God's put in my life, what I've found is like if I just do what I'm supposed to do, I don't have to think too hard about it. If
yeah.
I look at where I'm at today, and there were times I stumbled, bumbled, fumbled, whatever you want to say, right? But
Hmm.
as long as I kept trying to stay on the right path, and I think that service thing comes up, right? As
Yeah.
long as I tried to stay on the right path, do that service thing, even though like, man, there were times like the outsides didn't match the insides, and the
Right.
prices were paid for that. But as long as I stayed on that, trying to get back to it, I found that things just kind of happen in a better way than I could have ever planned. You
Yeah.
know, I think
Right.
that's it. I think it just seems like when I make my life about service to others, when I do the things that I need to do to allow me to stay sober, man, it talks about like we will comprehend the word peace and we will know serenity.
Yeah.
Um, that means that I didn't know what peace or serenity was prior to this, right? Like
True.
those didn't exist in my life. So I think that's the thing, like looking at that and the spiritual aspect of all that stuff. I think that's it. It's like the promise that I can be reasonably comfortable in this world, regardless of what's going on around me.
Yeah. Peace and serenity, right? So prior to my sobriety, my initial sobriety, and really my sobriety, I took a little break. As you know, I had my little
Yeah,
relapse moment, which I shared with you, and that's kind of how we reconnected again because
it
you reached out
is.
to me,
Yeah, it
and
is.
I thank you for that, right?
Absolutely, man.
And man, I heard somebody the other day on a online meeting. He was with his group, and the guy had been sober since like 2016, and he had a relapse. And it was interesting to watch him talk to his group, his home group, which is an online group,
Hmm.
and talk about his relapse and being very ashamed of it. But the relief he felt after he came, and said about what happened. I didn't know how to manage that initially, buddy. Um,
Hmm.
like I know people, places, and things, right? My relapse was extremely cliche. People, places, and things,
Yeah.
but man, it was more about that. It was is deeper than that. I don't know about you, but I have over these years since we first met, I've really had some struggles with loneliness,
Oh, for sure.
and because your world gets so freaking small, because you removed yourself from the folks you used to be around. One, and secondly is you're so freaking cautious, Will. Like, I'm just right. Like I'm walking around like with wrapped in bubble paper or something, dude, in my brain.
Hmm.
Uh, and you can't go, and there's a lot of places you used to go that you don't go. But anyway, that all said, loneliness is an issue, right? So, have you had some issues with that, Will, in your life?
Oh, for sure. I think I don't know. I can relate to some of the things you said, and then I can also tell you that I've had a completely different experience than some of the things you've said, right?
Awesome. Right.
Um, early on, especially as you're trying to like fall into the community, meet people, get involved, at some point a relationship probably comes in, right? And that's
Yeah.
always an interesting road for us because it fixes so many of those insecurities and internal problems and just the amount of validation from it, right?
Yeah.
um I think, I don't know, man. Like I look at it today, and do I still have my struggles with loneliness at times? Absolutely.
Right.
But I also feel like it's something I create in my head today. Like I don't feel like it's reality at this point.
Right.
The promises that are talked about in recovery, like I've received those at this point, and like I don't walk around in bubble wrap or in fear. Like I don't go to places that I don't have a reason to be at, right? But like that's not an issue. Like I don't know. I have this community, a very large community of people around me where like, the men I associate with, like there's a large amount of us. I'm extremely grateful for them.
Yeah.
I've made a lot of friends outside of that in recovery, and obviously there's some that I'm closer to than others. But I mean, man, reality of it is, if I'm lonely, it's probably because I'm putting myself there today.
Right.
Um, but I also think sometimes that loneliness stems from like being unable to sit with myself, like having to be in so much motion and all this stuff. Because when I sit with myself and when I'm by myself, it's like all that discomfort inside, like boils to the top, right? Those things that I haven't
Mm.
resolved. And, and I had a point where I was going through some struggles, and I was going to a lot more meetings than I normally did. And I
Mm.
had some years at this point. And I remember my sponsor at one point told me I was going because of distraction. I needed to go learn to sit with
Mm.
myself some. So he's like,
Right.
I don't think you need to be going to a meeting every night. He's like, I think, you do your 3 or 4 a week, and then you need to go spend some time with yourself and get comfortable with Will again. Man, that sucked. Like it was not a fun assignment.
No.
The
No.
other thing he told me to do, and this is still a work in progress, he told me to go find some mindless hobbies.
Mm.
Because I do think, and I get it now, and I've kind of got back into some of it, but I think those mindless hobbies give you time to kind of connect with yourself and develop like some self worth through them, or some just some good feelings about yourself with it, instead of sitting there and all that internal muck, you
Yeah.
know.
Right.
Um, but
After, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, but if I do look back at it, I think it was one of the struggles when I had this like implosion at 2 years sober, was like my first 2 years of recovery was I was always surrounded by people. I
Mm.
was generally in a relationship. I had a lot of eyes on me, and I rode that, and it became something unhealthy, and
Mm-hmm.
that's one of those things I have to work on. So, I didn't, being alone, like that wasn't something I understood.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, I think that's a big one for us to work on, especially
Yeah.
like, so many of us have such a high level of like self-loathing and shame in ourselves, that
Yeah.
it's like it is hard to be alone with myself.
Yeah.
um
It's sometimes it's like being a broken thermos, right? We look in the mirror and we look so much better than we did before. I mean, dude, if I showed you my picture going into avenues, well, you saw me. It was nothing
yeah,
pretty. I
I
mean,
was there for it.
I was in a wheelchair. Jamal was talking about that the other night at a meeting.
Yeah,
Uh,
man.
dude, I couldn't even walk, right? Uh,
Yeah.
and I opened that big book up. Oh gosh, it's on my desk, right? And I look at that picture, dude, and I look at myself today, and and I'm not pretty by any stretch of it means, but I look a hell of a lot better, dude, than that. And
For
so,
sure.
Will, but it's like, okay, I'm looking good, right? And then, okay, and then you shake it, and sometimes it's like a broken thermos, a lot of rattling glass still in there. The
Well,
wrapper looks good. We got a lot of work to do on the inside, which is a big part of this sobriety journey, right?
yeah. Yeah, I mean that's it. It's like we talk about spirituality. Like if you want to bring spirituality in, you probably need to clean
For
the house
sure.
up. Like,
Yeah,
and I think
right.
that's kind of it because, like, man, I'll tell you, and it's kind of like my whole life. I'm good at presenting the external, because
Yeah.
I carry this unhealthy idea of like if the external looks good, then I'm lovable and I'm worthy, right? So like I can put that mask on, I can
Hmm.
present. Half the time I may not even know I'm wearing the mask, and I think that's one of the scary things with the delusion that can exist in my head. So like,
Yeah.
it's trying to get away from that. So
Mhm.
that is that internal work, that is that spiritual work, and that's I think that's it. I think I heard someone say that I respect highly. We were doing something. He's like, I don't do what I do today as much to keep me from drinking and using. He's like, I do what I do today so I can maintain the relationships I have with others because
I
that's what
agree.
goes first for him.
Yeah.
So that I can be reasonably happy and treat people appropriately and kind of continue to have this life. And I think that was kind of it because when I don't do these things I need to do, I start to get real squirrely on the inside.
Hmm.
My
Yeah.
relationships start to diminish. Old behaviors start to pop up, and on a timeline, like this is the road to hell, right? Like, and my intentions the whole way will be like really good, you know.
Yeah. Right. As you're saying this, it's a great conversation, Will, because as you're saying these things to me, there are things I'm thinking about that uh, I'm not maintaining properly. And
For
so as you're
sure.
talking to me, I mean, it's wonderful, right? Because those are going through my head as I'm sitting here having a chat with you. I was just like, exhale, because there are things you need to take care of about spirituality. Um, so it has come very clear to me. My higher power is God, right?
Yeah.
And okay, so what has come clear to me, I've listened to enough meditation or just podcasts. I have a couple of really favorites that I listen to on a daily basis, and it
Okay.
helps center me. Abide is one, short, in the morning, and then I listen to
Hmm.
Greg Laurie a lot. Anybody that's ever talked to me knows I'm a Greg Laurie fan, man. So
Okay.
Greg Laurie made the statement one time about his children, and then and I have children, right? And then he
Hmm.
said, God loves you as much as you love your children. That's how much he loves you. And dude, I sat back and thought about that for a minute because, man, that love you have for your children, right? And his love is even deeper because it's unconditional, where we have tendencies sometimes to put conditions on our love, right?
For
Um,
sure. Absolutely.
and
Um,
that's a strong, like, if you really can internalize that, my man, right, and believe that gives you a lot of power, a lot of faith, right? I mean, in my brain, it does.
well, I always, to me, when I
Hope,
think
not
about
faith,
that,
hope.
yeah, for sure. And when I think about that, the way it was kind of broken down to me and the way I look at it is like I put barriers between me and God based off of my behaviors and my interactions and what I do. And when my behaviors align more with, this conception that I have of God, the character traits that I have of God,
Mm-hmm.
the principles, right? When they align more with this, like these are the things that bring me closer to God. And ultimately, like the deal is I want to let God run the show. I don't want to manage my life through the principles, right? Because I can't manage my life. We look at what happens when Will runs the show, it's like it's disaster. Like
Right.
it's not
Yeah.
good. Um,
Right.
Eat substance or no
No
substance.
matter
Like
what. Right.
I'm really good at screwing these things up.
Yeah.
So it's like I'm always trying to balance out like am I managing my life by the principles or am I letting God manage my life? And when I go against it, like I take steps further away. It's like I think of it as like a fork in the road. Like I can go closer, I can go further, and eventually I get really far away if I keep doing these things, and it's a little bit more difficult to get back. But I think the opportunities to get back are always there. Um,
Oh yeah, man.
you
Yeah,
know,
like just on the smallest things. I mean, I don't need to peel it back in detail, but just the smallest little things that happen, or where they just kind of snap me back
hmm
into some, where I need to be because I'm so close, man. Excuse me, I'm so far away from becoming the person that I know I have the potential to be. Uh, and and look, that's a big statement for a guy of my age to
for
think
sure.
that, right? Like that runway's short, brother. So it puts a sense of urgency in what I do on a daily basis. Well,
Yeah, but then it's like there's the urgency, but then there's the trust in the action. There's the trust in my higher power to provide. It's like,
right here.
it's the I like the analogy of like job hunting, right? Like, that job may land in your lap. You may not have to do anything, but most likely, like, you're gonna have to go put out applications. You're gonna have to go pound the pavement, pound
Mm,
the keyboard, whatever it may be today, right? Put up
mm,
that profile on LinkedIn, and like, you're gonna have to take these actions to get towards where you're supposed to be.
right.
And where you end up, that may be a temporary stepping stone for what comes next, right? So I think it's like trying to not get so caught up on the destination.
Mm,
Um, you
mm,
know, so here's the deal: the destination's great; it's cool to get there. There's too many variables, right? Like
yeah.
I can do what I need to do along the road on the journey day by day with the intention of getting to this goal, right? I don't think goals are bad, but the expectation of the outcome gets me in trouble. Because usually
Mm,
there's other factors, right? There's other people, there's other things going on. The world is the world, right? So like trying to get to that place where I can be reasonably happy with knowing like I did the best of my ability, this is just what it is.
yeah. And I had January 7th is my new sobriety date, by the way.
Okay.
Yeah, and so my my uh, my world sort of going squirrely a couple of months even before that. I had a pretty bad episode,
Okay.
uh, not good, right?
hmm
And so anyway, uh, January 7th was my new sobriety day. My sponsor ends up coming to drag my ass out of a bed in past Christiana, Mississippi. Man, it's amazing, right? The love, the guys, the men in your life, right? Another guy from our home group came with them,
hmm
and then off I went, right? Um, and um, excuse me, I dropped an earbud there, buddy. It's real, things roll. Uh, so I found that uh, when I ended up back in inpatient, I had to make something of this.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Like
We
I
talked
needed to
about that.
learn, yeah, and I needed to just do something. And I really started working. I got notebooks of notes that journals I was doing, and just taking, make goals and setting ideas I wanted to do. And this is part of it, right? Because what I realized in there, man, is that some of these young guys, to the point you made just a little while ago, they're so lucky because they could be there at such a young age, but not lucky because they're there, right? But they're there,
Yeah.
and the abilities to talk to them, because no matter how you look at it, you got to get them to stop saying, Mr. Manny or Mr. Ed. Hey, buddy, I'm just Manny. I'm just that dude. Look, we're
Yeah.
sitting in the same place. So those conversations became very interesting, and age is just becomes nothing, buddy,
Oh,
because
for
you're all
sure.
kind of sitting in the same place, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's always an interesting concept when we're around those things in those rooms in treatment or outside of treatment. I think,
Oh, especially where you are right now in your current job. I mean, you're seeing guys and ladies and men of all ages coming in
yeah.
there
Yeah.
across the
Very
board, I'm
much.
sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Will, just how are you? So you're in 12 step. I know.
Yeah.
Are you sponsoring folks, or how's that
Absolutely.
working? And how's that
Absolutely.
right?
I mean, that's the whole reason, right?
Yes.
Like it doesn't work without that.
Right.
Whenever I look back at my past of trying to do things, first off, I never fully completed all 12 steps, and I never started sponsoring. So it's like, well, of course it didn't work. You didn't do what's required, and
Mm-hmm.
it's always funny to me when I hear people say like, this didn't work for me. Well, it's like, you didn't do these things, so you couldn't get the results, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that's one of the, I think that's been one of the coolest things I've got to experience.
Really?
um yeah, I mean, I remember the first one I had, and look, it's
Yeah, I
funny.
wanted to ask you, what was your first sponsor like? And how'd that even happen? How'd
How'd
y'all
that
come
even
together?
happen? So he had me contact my current sponsor at the time and ask him if he would sponsor him, and I got a reply back from my sponsor that said, "How about you do it?" Um,
Oh,
and I think I was like 4 months sober at the time, maybe.
really? Wow.
Yeah, and he threw me right into the fire. Um, and it went well. He eventually transferred to a different guy to work with, but I picked up other men along the way.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's always, I don't know, man, you learn about yourself when you do it too. It's always like I go do this work with them, and it's like now I got to look at me all over again. Where it's
For
like, oh
sure.
yeah, man, that's I do that too, or I've been through that too. It's always kind of surreal how different we will think we are from each other,
But we're
and how
not.
absolutely alike we really are
Yeah.
when we start breaking
Yeah.
it down. And I mean, I think that ties to the age thing that you were talking about. Like,
Exactly. Right.
it, the similarities, like we're not unique, man. Like we're people, like, and we're
Mm-mm.
individuals, but like the stuff inside, the problems inside, like they're not unique to us. You know,
Yeah.
I think that's one of the big things, and I think coming to
It's
terms with
bizarre.
that.
Yeah, it's crazy, right? It's like remove. Okay, take around all the descriptions, the age, your color, your race, your
Yeah,
whatever, you're gay, straight, whatever it may be, right? Man, when you boil it all down, you're sitting in the same freaking place, dude.
for
And
sure,
to your point, when you start talking, the stories are so similar, right?
for
Um,
sure.
sort of all the same, but just have different colors and flavors around them.
Well, yeah, and if I'm listening, I'll hear it, and what it may be, it's just like with that unique thing, like, man, it's always my ego. That's
Mm.
it. When I first, it wants to make me better than, or it wants to make me worse than. It wants to separate me from the pack in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah,
So like that's where that uniqueness comes in. I'm either better than or worse than. But
right.
like when I can just kind of say like, hey, I'm amongst my people. This is where we're supposed to be. We're all working through these things. Like I'm not any better or any worse than anybody sitting down in here. Like that's kind of like the goal. And then it's
Hmm.
like when it reconstructs, or when I have problems in my life and I get pulled out of that center, it's like,
Yeah,
now I got to get back to that center. Um,
yeah, man. I have a great feeling when I come out of meetings. You know, it's like anything. You got to go. You got to get ready. You got to get there, right? And so that whatever barriers or anxieties or whatever the hell you got to do to get out the way to go. No anxiety. That's the wrong word. But just the physical act of getting there.
for
And
sure.
then it all starts the same. It all sounds the same, but there's just something about it, man. It's very peaceful. Like I'm right where I'm supposed to be right now at this moment, right? Listening to this.
Yeah, I look back over my life and I was like always surrounded by people, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
but always alone. Does that make sense? Like
Mm-hmm.
in the middle of a crowd, but still on the outside looking in, hopping from friendship group to friendship group, just like, just never really quite felt like I belonged. Substances did a really good job to fix that. They
Mm-hmm.
they handled that stuff for me. And I look at it now and it's like, well, I've got these problems. I got to find a sufficient substitute, right? And like I find that in the meetings, I find that in the program, I find that in my higher power. But like, that piece of knowing, like, man, I'm with my people, I'm with my tribe. Like
Yeah.
that's a big deal. And I can remember it, experiencing it myself in treatment. I can remember, I can look back to hearing clients talk about experiencing in treatment. They're like, yeah, man, it's so good in here because I'm with people that understand, that get me. I'm not alone anymore. And I think that's one of those big things that comes up, is that, because you talked about the loneliness earlier. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
I have this fellowship, I have this community that's there. I just gotta I've got to reach out and take it. I've got to go insert myself into it. But if I want it, I can have it.
Yeah. Yeah. There is a peaceful, there is a fight in inpatient, but there's a piece of it as well, right? Because you're surrounded by everything, all the tools, and it's just kind of a peaceful little environment inside of there when you just really kind of settle out and you have acceptance on
Yeah.
it. So, um, man, this is a great opportunity to talk with you. Like I told you the other day, I just really wanted to have this like as a conversation. There's,
Yeah, it's been
you
good.
know, I really appreciate you. I look forward to seeing you in person again soon. Um, you know, and I learned something when I was in inpatient last time, right? So this there was this girl in there, and she was a school teacher. Gosh, she was so smart. Well, I mean, she hurt your head. I called her wordsmith.
Okay.
Uh, she was like one of the smarter people I've met. So smart that she was actually troubled, right?
Okay.
And you know what I'm
Okay.
saying?
Yeah,
Like
I
trying
get
to
it. I
fit,
definitely
like
get it.
just stop trying to figure all this out, right? And
Yeah.
she said like that an old timer told her in an AA meeting, right, that if you do one thing wrong, you lose all these things. But if you
Okay.
do one thing right, all these things come back, right?
Hmm.
And that that hand gesture was just so true, because it takes time, and and I'm in the middle of it, buddy. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like we're both in the middle of it, but I'm confident and I feel real. I'm happy, and I'm happy in this spot. Odd that I've seen my relapse as a learning experience.
Yeah.
I you know what I'm saying, dude? I thought I was
Yeah.
bulletproof, like so many people. I mean, how many people have you heard and you talk to say the same thing?
I mean, I've
Um,
done it too, man. I think it's the nature of what we are,
for sure,
I
for
think,
sure.
I think sometimes, and that's it, man. Everything's an experience. Like you can't, it's like that phrase, like I can't call it. Like I can't tell you if this is good or bad. I can tell you that if you do these
Mm,
things, you're more likely to end up in a place you want to be. If you do these things, you're more likely to end up in a place you don't want to be. But I
right.
can't tell you if it's a good or bad thing because I don't know, man. Like you're gonna go have your experience with it, and then you get the opportunity for growth.
Yeah, when I started just shooting these short little video vignettes, right? It
Mhm.
was because, and it was like day 29 was what I was calling it. And I was doing a countdown, which I texted those little links to you.
Yeah,
And that came from the everything from day 1 to day 28 is so planned and inpatient, which you're working
yeah,
in right now. So, it's all
yeah.
planned. Get up, go to lunch, go here, go there,
Routine.
total routine, right?
Yeah,
So there's a lot of people that I know, and you could probably still see it today, but even when we were inpatient together, and I know one for sure, no names mentioned, but I got it. It's under control no matter what, man. I got this, right? And then
yeah,
the couple of days before they get out, of recent, I have one young guy in mind when I say this. Man, he had his game together, but closer he got to that relay state, he realized that it was the reels was coming his way quick.
hmm,
And so, my head was wrapped around what does day 29 really look like? Like, man,
mm.
you're out. You know what I'm saying, dude? You're out. You're not in this routine anymore. You launch back into the real world and you're like, okay, you can go to IOP, you can go to sober living, you can go do your 90 and 90, a lot of things you can go do, but that's still a very, even, dude, like, like day 29 to me was, oh my God, I'm out of here. Right.
Yeah, yeah,
And,
yeah.
right. Um, well, brother, man, thank you. Uh,
Absolutely.
it's been great. And nice pooch there, buddy.
Yeah, we got a visitor. He decided to say hi. So
Oh,
say hey,
nice.
Frodo.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. All right, Will.
Manny, it's been great. I look
Man,
forward to
I know,
catching
right?
up with you in person.
Yeah, man, what a
So
great experience, right?
yeah, man. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I hope we touch some lives with this conversation, brother.
See.
Yeah, man, solid, right?
We'll see, man. I hope so too.
Okay, bro.